Hello, my name is Professor Ian Williamson, and I have the great privilege of serving as the Dean of the Paul Merage School of Business, Dean. Welcome to another episode of the Dean's Thought Leaders Series. Today we have with us Kurt Busch, who is the CEO and co-founder of Sentience Corporation. Sentience Corporation is an artificial intelligence and machine learning organization based here in Irvine, Orange County, which provides leading cut-through technology that focuses on everything from application of machine learning and artificial intelligence in earbuds to automobiles. He has an extensive experience working in the technology sector, both in private and public organizations, and in 2021 was the recipient of the Pacific Southwest Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. I should also note that Kurt is a University of California, Irvine alum and an inductee into the University of California, Irvine Engineering School Hall of Fame. Kurt, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much, Ian. I'm very happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. So today I'd like to talk to you about artificial intelligence. Obviously, your company is leading the way in this particular space, but I would like to just start with maybe your perspectives on where you see artificial intelligence going, its impact on industry, and perspectives you might have over the next 5 years for this sector.
I think that's a great question. So if we look back at compute in general, probably over the last 40 years, there was a time when we thought microprocessors was something pretty special. Perhaps the world only needed maybe 7 PCs in the world. And today we see microprocessors everywhere. Yeah. And they're in things as large as data centers, but they're also in things as small as greeting cards. And with the advent of artificial intelligence, specifically deep learning, I believe that we will see the same programming paradigm of artificial intelligence the same way. It will be in data centers, much like it is today, but it will also be in ultra small devices, even disposable devices. Yeah. We will see AI everywhere. And in fact, it won't just be, oh, is there AI in that? Your assumption will be there is always AI in that. Intelligence will be a pervasive and an ambient type of technology, and it will just assist us in a transparent way in our everyday lives.
So talk to me a little bit about Sentience and how you are preparing that organization to be involved in the future you just described.
So we started Sentience in 2017 with this idea that the world needed a new kind of processor. And at this point, NVIDIA is starting to take off with AI processing, particularly deep learning, training, and inference in the data center. And we saw that there was no equivalent device for edge devices. Okay. And as you said earlier, we're in things as small as earbuds today to as large as automobiles, things that have constricted requirements such as power, space, latency, things like that you want to put the intelligence deep into the device. And that was really the idea behind Sentience. So we started the team and we got a lot of experienced people from local companies. We have a lot of people from Broadcom, some people from Skyworks and so on, that had experience in not only semiconductor design, but also in machine learning. Our head of machine learning came from Microsoft. And we combined those two things together. And in fact, if you go to Sentience webpage, you see this puzzle piece. And the puzzle piece is all about the combining of machine learning with semiconductor design to develop a new type of processor. And fast forward 4 years later, we've shipped over 20 million units. We're designed into several dozen different products. And we've built a processor that brings approximately 100 times the throughput, 100 times the efficiency, 30 times the throughput, and we do it at half the size of previous traditional processors. So we're well on our way to make deep learning a pervasive technology.
So this is truly going to be the technology that allows it to be in all aspects of everything we do, perhaps even the fabric that we wear one day.
I think there's a very good chance of it. You will be walking around with several sensors in your clothing tied to local AI processing that keep track of you. They monitor you much like perhaps the monitoring of your car today. You say, okay, your blood pressure is a little bit high, your heart rate's a little bit high. We have a stroke oncoming. These types of things are what people are looking at, and we're going to see rolled out in the next several years, and we'll really see this pervasive ambient deep learning that can monitor pretty much everything that's going on and really assist you in a transparent manner.
Got it. So as you describe the ever-growing and important role of artificial intelligence in all facets of what we're doing, one of the questions that individuals oftentimes have is, what are the ethical or governance issues that we as a society need to be thinking about when it comes to this form of technology? And then what does that mean for actually corporations like Sentient? How do you think about these issues as well in the design or the utilization of your activities?
So deep learning is much, it's a tool much like anything else. And you can often say, you can use a hammer to build a building, you can use a hammer to crack a skull. The thing that makes deep learning somewhat different than previous tools is it very much benefits the companies that have large amounts of data. And there is this saying that we've all grown up with, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And deep learning definitely benefits those that have more data. So the companies that are in the position to collect billions of terabytes of data, they are in a position to take advantage of deep learning much more than the larger companies. Than the smaller companies. So this is something that I think we as a society are going to have to face in perhaps this is a Federal Trade Commission kind of a monopoly sort of thing, unfair competition sort of thing that we're going to have to address from a legislative standpoint. Is the companies that have amazing amounts of data have an amazing advantage. And if you don't have the data, really deep learning is useless to you. And it's all about who has the data and what do they do with that data. And I think that is really where we're going to have to come to grips with this from a societal standpoint.
And do you have any sense as to the role of regulation in this, or how that would play out, or what's your perspective, or as a person in the industry?
I think it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
The companies with the largest amount of data today have extremely strong abilities to lobby on their own behalfs. And our current legislators are not particularly used to this levels of technology. So it's going to take probably people from industry that are raising the alarms, that are raising their hands and saying, look, this is what this creates. This is the unfair advantages that get created by deploying deep learning everywhere, or even in the data centers. The amount of data that you have is really what drives this unfair advantage. So, from an investment standpoint, if you look at companies that collect data and use that data as a virtuous cycle to build their businesses, those are very nice investments, pardon me. But they also allow for the ability to abuse that when it comes to our consumer or just general population.
So I think of our listeners and individuals, many of whom are students, and they are, thinking about where they want to be 5, 10 years from now. And so they're hearing this and maybe it excites them. What advice would you give to individuals, given what you've discussed, about how they can prepare themselves to be successful in the business dynamics that you've just described? What are the types of things they should be thinking about, and how would they go about preparing themselves?
I think the best way, well, first of all, there's many ways to be successful today. I think today the children graduating from college have an order of magnitude or more different opportunities in front of them than we had when we graduated from college. There's so many better ways or different ways or more diverse ways to earn a living, to support family, to improve society. And the advice that I give young people is really look at this Venn diagram of 4 things. And the one is what do you have a passion for? What do you like? And if you tell people just to follow your passion, I think that's horrible advice. Because if you don't take into account the other 3, the second is what are you good at? I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I'm only good at a few of them. So you can't really earn a living or help society if you're not good at it. The third is someone willing to pay you. And if no one's willing to pay you for that activity, you have to figure out some way for you to keep the lights on, pay the rent, support a family and whatnot. And the third is do you benefit society with it? And if you can combine these 3 of what you like to do, what you're good at, someone will pay you, and does it benefit society, just follow that path. And if you can use that as your compass, if you will, I think it ends in good things. And today there's so many new opportunities for people. I wish I was a young person entering or exiting university to go on that path.
So I'd be curious about the moment or the time when you formed Sentient and sort of your decision to create this venture. How did you recognize that opportunity, and what was that like, taking that step into creating this enterprise?
Yeah, starting the road down of being an entrepreneur at 47. I was a public company CEO prior to this, but had never started a company from day one. I had joined a few startups, but was never a founder. I decided that I'd reached a stage of my life that it was either now or never, which, 47, okay, now it's time to do it because it's, probably at least a 10-year adventure. And we looked at the market and we saw that in the compute space, we have Intel for traditional compute in the data center, and you have ARM for compute in the edge. And you have NVIDIA in the data center for deep learning, and you have really nobody at the edge. And then for FPGAs, you have Xilinx in the data center, and you have Lattice at the edge. So there was this big gap of machine learning for the edge. And when I talk about edge, I'm talking about devices as small as earbuds, and probably the largest would be automobiles that we would play in. So we saw this opportunity, and we told our friends, look, we're starting a chip company. And they said, yeah, that's really funny. No one started a chip company in like 20 years. In fact, I think Atheros was the last one that was started. You should really try this SaaS software thing. That's really where the money is. But we weren't deterred. I mean, we'd been in the business for about 30 years, me and my co-founders, and we said, let's just go for it. Now is the time to found a company and really build the next great semiconductor company for Orange County.
Was there a moment I know there's a moment when you said, okay, let's go, and you have confidence, and there's sort of the valley. And then was it a moment when you were like, I think we got it right. I think we made the right call.
So I think it was pretty early on. We executed pretty well. We had some amazing early employees, and they really got the company going from an execution standpoint. But there was probably a couple of big defining moments in the entrepreneurial journey. The first is when you take your first money from people.
Yeah.
And the first money into Sentient was from my family, and then one of my friends wrote a check for $250,000 and says, okay, I believe in you. And at that point, it's like, oh, I better not let them down. And then you raise, your first millions of dollars and hire employees. And then you're really making this responsibility to the community. You have to keep the employees employed. You have to supply benefits. You have to keep the paychecks going. And a company of, right now we're about 100 people, but there's probably around 400 people that rely today on Sentient for its livelihood. So that weight or that responsibility is very, very, very important to our co-founders.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, these are the families that we support and that are really relying on us.
Yeah.
And then, beyond all the responsibilities, when you ship your first 1 million units, that was the big deal. And then the day you ship your first 10 million units.
Yeah.
And we recently hit our 20 million milestone, and it's a lot. That's a lot of product out there.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting.
And so, if you look forward 5 years, 10 years, what's the vision? What do you see Sentient doing? Where would you like to go?
This is a tremendously large market. We are, already just shipped our first 20 million units. I think we need to get to the point that we're shipping hundreds of millions of these things a year. And the market for small processors today, non-AI enabled, is about $20 billion. And our expectation is some percentage of that, even if it's a small percentage of that, converts to basically being AI native. Sentient can be a large player in that. So my goal is to take Sentient to a large revenue number that would be appropriate for a public company, and then do a NASDAQ listing is our goal for Sentient.
Sounds great. Well, we're going to be very excited in watching that journey. And it is fantastic that you've had the opportunity to take the time to talk to us about your experiences. I really appreciate that. And it's really amazing to see the types of things you've been able to accomplish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me here. And Zot Zot.
Zot Zot Zot.